Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It is Sunday, March 1st, 2026. March has arrived. And today we're doing a session from the Thoughts and Reflections series, episode 10. And so this, this is the top 10 things I hope to never do. It might seem like a bit of a strange title. But most of us, of course, have at least a few real meaningful goals in life, right? Or dreams we'd like to realize. And these are the affirmative objectives, if you will, that motivate and inspire us, both in the short term, things like, I'd like to get this project done by the end of the weekend, or and in the long term as well, right? I hope to earn a PhD someday, or I hope to be a master carpenter, or I'd like to be married and have 3 kids by the time I'm 40. Whatever they might be, it's great, obviously, to have these aspirations. And they help us identify what's important and where to channel our energies. Maybe you've even made a list of your life aims and objectives, right? Or sketched out some kind of a plan or a blueprint you hope to follow. But we can also approach life in terms of the negatives we'd like to avoid. And as everyone knows, 2 negatives equals a positive. So avoiding the negatives fits that equation and means that we've done something good, right? So for example, if I never drink and drive, then I can never get into an accident or harm someone with my car while I'm under the influence. And yeah, I know that's obvious and pretty simplistic, and really, it's just a matter of personal responsibility, right? So if you don't do this bad thing, then you can avoid all the negative consequences. Pretty straightforward. But this got me to thinking about the world in general. And in contrast to all the things that you hope to accomplish, what are your goals in terms of what you don't want to do? The anti-goals, almost like maybe an anti-bucket list. I don't know. But maybe you've never thought of it this way. So let me be more specific. So what goals do you have in terms of what you want to avoid doing? Maybe to help reduce human suffering or to make the world a better place in general. Okay? And so this depends obviously on, in terms of our resources, our capacities, etc. But at the most immediate and personal level, here's something we can all do. We can try to limit the time that we spend being a jerk towards other people, right? Or causing problems or creating pain for other people. Now, I can say that in good faith because over the years, I've tried to reduce, not eliminate, but I've tried to reduce my capacity for being an a-hole, if you will. That's the way I like to put it, especially, in terms of causing pain to others. And this has really been a lifelong goal of mine. I'm still working on it. But then I also did an experiment too. I thought about the big picture. I thought about, even for all my flaws and my misdeeds in the past and, etc. I decided to come up with a list of things that I've never done and or would always try to avoid doing, again, to make the world a better place. And so the double negatives can be turned into a positive. All right, so here's my list of 10 things, not in any specific order necessarily, but just sort of the things that came to mind in terms of the 10 things that I hope never to do. All right, so I'm going to change up the view here. Made a little mini PowerPoint on this one. So, all right, so first, I've never met Jeffrey Epstein, and I've never visited the island or his islands. I don't appear anywhere in the Epstein files. I actually did a search. I trust that you don't appear in them either. But the broader point too is I've never been and I never will be involved in any kind of sex trafficking ring, right? Or targeting minors for personal massages or services of any kind. And I'll bet if you're listening to this that you'd probably say the same thing. Okay, so I think we could get a lot of agreement on that one, right? Again, some people do that. So I'm just suggesting that these are things that I don't ever want to do, and I hope you're on board with it as well. All right, a second thing that I've never done is I've never run a phone scam or tried to swindle someone out of money or property or anything, right? I can't even imagine doing that, even if I were flat broke. So yes, the point is, I mean, that's a goal, if you will, of mine. I'd like to live my entire lifetime without ever running a phone or an online scam or committing fraud for any reason whatsoever. And again, wouldn't we all want to be able to say that? Well, apparently not, right? Because millions of people have been targeted and have been scammed by countless predators out there. How many? I don't know. I'm just saying I refuse to join them. All right, and third, I've never taken a bribe from anyone for any reason. Certainly not from my students. Not that there's much you could bribe me about anyway, but I still can't imagine taking a bribe to do something illegal or special favors or whatever. For that matter, I don't think I've ever tried to bribe someone myself. In fact, I'm quite certain I've never done that. So yeah, I'd like to live my entire life without ever taking or giving someone a bribe. Is that a bad thing? I don't think so. Okay, number 4. I've never engaged in road rage. I've certainly done some stupid things while driving, haven't we all? My many speeding tickets will definitely affirm the fact that I'm not a perfect driver. But I've never taken my frustrations out on anyone else in traffic. I've never tried to stop someone, so I could yell at them, or use my vehicle as a weapon, or even tailgate it. I've had the occasional dispute in my nearly half century of driving, to be sure, but nothing beyond an argument. No cussing, no violent incidents of any kind. And I'd rather just try to be a calming influence on the roadways as much as possible. Well, that's not a bad thing, right? Okay, 5th, it's almost impossible for me to litter or throw garbage out of my car or dump something in our waters. So yeah, the environment, that's kind of a big deal, right? So to be fair, there's still a lot more I could be doing beyond the recycling and the composting that are part of our daily routines. We haven't eliminated garbage, creating garbage altogether, but we rarely put out anything much each week for the garbage trucks to pick up. In fact, there are many weeks where we have nothing to put out in terms of garbage. But of course, there's still other ways to reduce energy consumption, and there's polluting, areas where I could certainly do better. For example, driving my vehicle that burns fossil fuels to work, that's something I could reduce. But I definitely cannot litter or pollute the water directly. So that's certainly one of my, my life aims, shall we say. No littering. What's wrong with saying that? And then speaking of the environment, here's something I never planned to do. Not that I'm not ambitious in some respects, but I don't ever plan to climb Mount Everest, okay? I'm not saying that no one should ever climb Mount Everest or other mountains, but most of us don't have to or need to, and probably shouldn't. So in general, I'd like to avoid ecotourism as much as possible, or at least in terms of, again, all the unnecessary damage and destruction that we often wreak as a result. And there are a couple of additional points I want to make and related to this issue here of not climbing Mount Everest. So first, I've learned over the years that it's a great joy to enjoy nature effectively in your own backyard, right? There's so much you can actually see and as part of your everyday comings and goings. And I deeply appreciate even a lot of the little things that I never really noticed previously. And second, it is obviously such a huge and fascinating world out there, and I love to travel as much as anybody does, but I have to balance that with the recognition that there's always an ecological and environmental price to be paid along with that. So what's cool then is that we do have all of these, all kinds of nature and travel documentaries that we can watch or listen to and learn from, So we have alternatives that we can probably should take advantage of. So thanks, Sir David Attenborough. Thanks, Craig Foster, for my octopus teacher, and so many more out there. Okay, number 7. I really, really like this one. I don't know about you, but I've never killed anyone, directly or indirectly, and so yeah, I'm gonna. One of my life goals is to never kill someone. Now, of course, I've never been in a war zone or in the military and fighting a war. I've never been in an active conflict zone. I've never even had to confront really a kill or be killed type of situation. Well, actually, with one exception, I was once threatened, to be killed. Someone threatened to kill me as a teenager, and someone very close to me did the threatening and came after me with a gun. But fortunately, he was drunk, and I simply got out of there before he could fire any shots, so no damage done. And I certainly ain't perfect in terms of human relationships, but the point is that I've never even imagined trying to take someone else's life. But of course, thousands, indeed millions of people have, from wars and genocides to the everyday sorts of tribal disputes or interpersonal disputes or even pure accidents. So I'm just saying, I have zero interest in killing someone else. So all else equal, I'm thinking we'd have a lot less human suffering if we followed some kind of a rule like thou shalt not kill. I feel like I've heard that somewhere before. Anyway, and then that leads me to number 8 on the list. I've never started or authorized a war or encouraged anyone else to do so. Now, someone's making these decisions, and according to the Council on Foreign Relations in their Global Conflict Tracker, there are currently at least 30 active deadly conflicts, including the latest involving the U.S. and Israel attacks on Iran. And just to be clear, I'm not here to debate geopolitics or to try to justify one regime over another. Like most people, I certainly have my opinions on these matters. And sometimes we're confronted with some really difficult situations. All I'm saying is that I've never myself initiated a war or a genocide or even a gang fight for that matter. And you probably haven't either. If I were in a position of power and influence, I'd probably be working ceaselessly to try to figure out some kind of diplomatic solution. I don't know if I'd be successful or not, but that would certainly be my aim. But I guess all I'm saying is that in the end, I'm confident that I'm going to leave this planet having never started or authorized an armed conflict of any kind. And I doubt you will either. And of course, I doubt I'll ever be in a position to have to make such a decision. So don't worry about that if you're really into wars, okay? I'm just more of the, in the Edwin Starr camp, if you will, when he's saying, war, yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Okay, and then here's another obvious one, I think. I've never sexually abused anyone or assaulted anyone, from children to adults. And you haven't either, am I right? Indeed, I'll never understand how people find pleasure in hurting others that way or taking advantage of someone or someone who's vulnerable. And yet, again, how many thousands, maybe even millions of people have, I don't know. But bottom line is I cannot do that. Can't even fathom it myself. So no sexual abuse in my lifetime. Again, I think, wouldn't we all want to agree on that one? And then finally, for number 10, here's one that might sound a bit strange. I've never, I don't want to be a billionaire. In fact, I've never even earned $1 million in a year or anywhere close. So yeah, I don't aim to be a billionaire. And in fact, I don't even like the idea, and I don't have this, but I wouldn't even want $1 million sitting in my bank account. You might say, well, why not? What's wrong with that? Right? What's wrong with having, a little nest egg or whatever? My point is, I just can't imagine extracting so much value from other people's labor to fill my own pockets, especially if they're struggling to get by. And indeed, most of the world is to this day. So I'm not going to be, launching into some grand critique of global capitalism here. But I'm just going to state for the record that above a certain level, we really don't need much more or any more. And I'm not suggesting there's some kind of a obvious or natural fixed maximum, but having done a PhD in the general area, and as far as I can tell, there's always going to be some degree of inequality. That's fine. I'm just stating publicly that I'm never going to be a billionaire or even aspire to be a billionaire or a multimillionaire. Is it crazy then to think that the world would somehow be a much better place if we didn't have these kinds of obscene, inequalities in terms of wealth and resource distributions? You can argue for or against that proposition, whatever you like. I just don't personally think that global capitalism is the final stage of history or inevitable or, quite frankly, the best path forward for, humanity and for the planet. So in short, don't worry, I'll never be that rich financially myself. I just hope to give, if I give enough of my time and my energy and my resources and love to others, then perhaps some of that will come back to me in the end, or if I'm ever in need, or at the end of my life. I can't genuinely do the things that I want to do if I'm actively trying to become a billionaire or just chasing after money and wealth so that I can have it in my name. So that's probably also why I don't have any ads on YouTube or more than a few hundred subscribers. But that's okay. You're here. And as the recently deceased Jesse Jackson used to say, and I met him back in his first presidential campaign back in 1984, I met him on the campus of my university. And he started by saying and reminding us, you are, and we had to repeat after him, you are somebody, and you matter, and so on. Okay, well, that's it for today. And until next time, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. And let's really strive for peace in our personal lives and especially in this world around us these days. Take care. We'll see you next time.